Hello, friends. Today, I want to talk about the connection between narcissistic abuse and social anxiety. I'd be curious to know how many people watching that have been through narcissistic abuse battle social anxiety in one form or another, because social anxiety comes up in many different ways. For example, some people, they feel super uncomfortable in public situations and they just shut down. Other people are unable to make eye contact. Some people fall into people pleasing. Maybe they seem really outgoing, but it is a complete abandonment of self to please somebody else. That's social anxiety. They don't feel safe being authentic. So there's a lot of different ways it comes up. And I want to talk about 5 ways that narcissistic abuse really creates or strengthens if you have any kind of social anxiety inside. Maybe it's not even affecting your life, but a narcissist will know how to get in there and kind of take that social anxiety to a level 10 or higher. Okay, so if that's your case, you're going to want to watch this video. For those that don't know me, my name is Michele. I'm the founder of the Thriver School of Transformation, which is a monthly membership where we meet together live weekly and we work through the side effects of narcissistic abuse and CPTSD from the inside out. So if that's something you'd be interested in, I will leave the link here for you to check it out. Let's talk about how narcissists really create or strengthen the social anxiety that you might have. Okay, so the first way is by keeping the wound of rejection alive inside of you. In other words, imagine if I have a physical wound, right? And then I'm around somebody that's constantly hitting that wound, preventing it to heal. Well, that's what narcissistic abuse can do. So for example, if you have a wound from the past of rejection, maybe it was from a past significant other, or maybe it was because you never really felt the unconditional love from your parents for whatever reason. Okay, so there's a wound there. They find that wound and they pour lemon on that paper cut and they just keep the wound alive. And the way they do that is in the relationship, they heal the wound in the beginning. In other words, people that have fallen for a narcissist will often tell me things like, Michele, when I used to feel like nobody could ever love me. And then this person came along and made me feel like they were the ones that could love me. Or maybe they had an insecurity about how they looked. I felt like no one would think I was beautiful. And then the narcissist came along and told me how beautiful I was. Okay, so I want to just let you know that if you felt like the narcissist was healing your wound, it's because they noticed it and they wanted you to feel like they could heal it so that you would then go into the relationship. But once there, they threw you off that pedestal and caused you to strive after those healing effects that they supposedly gave you in the beginning. They want you striving after that. And that's what a relationship is often like, right? This person thought you were amazing, but then they stopped and now you're constantly chasing after those feelings that they gave you in the beginning. They do that on purpose because it keeps that wound very much active inside of you. And your fear of rejection will cause you to chase them instead of pausing and realizing your worth and your value. They're activating a core wound from your past. And when that happens, we often show up more from our child self, from the ages that the wound was inflicted. And that's why it almost feels so life and death. Like you need them to see you and love you and not reject you, almost as if your life depended on it, because they're creating constant emotional flashbacks in you. Okay, so having that wound open, feeling rejected by somebody that supposedly, is supposed to love you, especially if it's a parent and you're constantly feeling rejected, it just keeps you feeling not worthy. It's very hard to be around people and feel confident around people if we're feeling that fear of rejection. The second thing they do is isolate you. Okay, so if you are an adult and you're in a relationship now with somebody that's toxic. So the reason the isolation causes social anxiety is because it cuts you off from anyone that knows the real you. So maybe before them, you had some really good friends. And if you had insecurities or you felt bad about something, you could go to these friends and they would build you up, right? The narcissist doesn't want you to spend time with people that build you up. They want you to spend time with their flying monkeys, people that adore the narcissist, right? And you're just kind of along for the ride. And what happens is they create this isolation. Sometimes they'll do it by making you think that your friends are, bad for the relationship. Maybe your friends really see something that's dangerous and they're like, Michele, so-and-so is like keeping you from your friends. Like there's something weird about that. Like you should be allowed to go out with your friends. And that's like a normal thing for friends to do and to say. When you share that with the narcissist, they have this paranoia thing that they do where they're like, oh, they're trying to break us up. They're trying to get in the way of our relationship. And they make you feel paranoid about who's trying to keep you from them and that you should protect the relationship at all costs, including the cost of your close friends. So when they have you isolated, they can then dictate who you are, which sadly winds up being so negative. And you're hearing all these horrible things you supposedly are, not realizing that what they're doing is projection. They're projecting themselves into you. You have nobody to kind of help you to stay grounded, and it just erodes your self-esteem. And low self-esteem and social anxiety go hand in hand. Number 3 is how they set you up to look bad. This is something that we don't realize until after. And once we realize it and we look back at how far and how long that's been going on, it's almost shocking. So what they'll often do before you go out into social situations is they will cause the biggest drama battle. They will argue with you. They will fight with you until you are exasperated. The last thing you want to do is go out in public. But they take you and you guys are now going out in public. And what happens? You get out of the car, you both had the same emotional turmoil. You think you both look the same, but you don't. What you don't realize is you get out of the car a mess because you've just been attacked verbally, emotionally, psychologically. You get out the car a mess and they look like they are just the happiest, laid back person in the world. So people see that and they're like, oh, so-and-so so happy. It's too bad he or she's with so-and-so. They're such a downer. Like they're so down and they look like they have such a difficult personality, like poor thing. Meanwhile, they have no idea, right? But what you don't realize is that that's exactly what they're doing. That's what they're doing. They're setting you up to look bad. They'll do that before you get together, or they'll do it after. And that leads me into the 4th way that they create social anxiety. It's by creating paired associations in your subconscious. In other words, every time you go out, they cause a fight when you get home. You did something wrong, you said something wrong, you made them feel something bad, you acted in such a way that was so humiliating. They attack everything you do. If you're down, they get mad at you. If you're too happy, they get mad at you. And your brain starts creating an association that being out causes fights, and our brain is geared or designed to cause us to move away from pain. So social situations become something you start to avoid. Once you start avoiding it, your brain starts thinking there's danger there, right? And then that just starts spiraling the social anxiety. And then the last reason, and this has to do with you're out of the relationship with the narcissist. Let's say you finally wake up and you're like, I can't handle this anymore. And you're out of all toxic relationships and you're still struggling with social anxiety. And that's because the chronic stress, the paired associations, the psychological abuse, the games that were done to create the social anxiety in the first place, they've created PTSD brain, right? In other words, your brain is now affected by what you went through. And because when you were with the narcissist, you had to suppress. You couldn't tell the narcissist, look, this is too much for me. You're being too hard to this is emotionally dragging me down. You couldn't have a conversation where they actually validated your reality and helped you to work through it together. No, all your feelings were dismissed, minimized, or erased. So you suppressed a lot of what was going on, a lot of the fears, a lot of the frustration, the confusion. But just because you suppressed it and it was out of sight didn't mean it was out of mind. And definitely not out of body. And trauma gets stuck in the body. So now you're not with the narcissist and you go to a social event and you go through the same anxieties, phobia, you feel the same phobia, you feel the same panic, you're highly triggered as if they're there still. It's because now you have to work through the PTSD that came about as a result of narcissistic abuse. So those are 5 ways that narcissistic abuse really creates and strengthens and cements social anxiety into your personality. I know because I suffered it for a long time. In fact, it was the hardest part of recovery when it comes to CPTSD recovery. But because I know that, I also know that you can overcome it. So for the month of October in the Thriver School of Transformation, we are going to dive deep into social anxiety and how to work through it. So if you want to join us, even if it's just for the month, I will leave the link here for the school. You can have 7 days to taste it, to try it for free and see if it's something that is helpful for you on your healing journey. Regardless, I do want to say you can overcome social anxiety. You can get back to your confidence, raise your self-esteem, you can get back to your authentic self. But because you now have PTSD brain, right? Because it has now affected the wiring inside of you, you have to have compassion. You have to be dedicated to your healing journey, and you have to give yourself time and a lot of self-love. And if you do, you can work through it.